Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's resume and cover letter workshop that's put on by the Hispanic Bar Association of Houston. We're very grateful to have with us today Melissa Torres. Melissa is a business architect with Phillips 66, where she handles custom enterprise IT projects across the HR, legal, procurement, and finance departments to enhance the company's data platforms, integration solutions, and applications. But beyond that work in her formal day job is that she spent many years focusing on resumes and cover letters. And it started organically about 20 years ago, just doing it for friends and friends of friends, oftentimes law students and other graduate students who were embarking on their first professional jobs. But it grew from there. And at some point, she started working with a recruiter as a resume and cover letter coach for attorneys specifically. She would help the attorneys learn to craft good resumes, cover letters, and then also to refine their materials on LinkedIn to create the most impact to hiring teams. So we're very grateful, Melissa, that you've joined us. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm kind of excited to do this. I've not done a presentation on this work before, so this is really exciting. All right, so we're just going to get right into it. So introduction, Chris just did a great job of introducing. I'm Melissa Torres, and like he said, I started reviewing resumes and cover letters a long time ago, and my husband is an attorney, actually, and sits on the HISBA board. And so I've been really closely tied with the legal profession, I think, for several years. And now, as an architect with Phillips 66, my job is both HR and legal, and I support both of them from a technology perspective. And so this has given me a lot of insight now into the ways in which technology is really shaping the job market, the field of recruiting, job seeking. And so I'm excited to do that. Today, I want to talk about a few different things. My agenda is, first, we're going to kind of go over what are resumes and cover letters for? What are they really supposed to be doing? Resumes for the law versus other professions, what are the differences? We're going to review a before and after. Chris in the group was kind enough to give me an anonymized resume and cover letter to use, and I did my standard editing job and coaching job for those. And so I have a presentation on that. I want to talk about matching your materials to the job ad or to the job at hand and how we do that, how we get started with that. And I also want to talk about the online presence game, right? Writing to the algorithm and things like that. And then hopefully we'll have time for a few questions at the end if I am succinct enough. All right, so we're going to get right into it. What are resumes and cover letters for? Resume is French for summary. So it differs quite a bit from a curriculum vitae, which a curriculum vitae means the story of a life. So this is meant to capture every aspect of your education, career, and typically you only use a curriculum vitae for an academic setting. Resumes for any job should be pretty different from each other because the resume is meant to help a hiring manager understand what skills you bring to this particular position, not to any position, right? So I'm always encouraging people to change their resume up a little bit depending on the job, if you can. It's pretty important. Cover letters, which I actually think are going out of style a little bit. Some people don't use them. Some areas of job seeking don't use them anymore. But they're meant to say really what you don't or can't say in a resume, right? They're two different formats, so this makes a lot of sense. Resumes really have to be succinct. Cover letters give you a chance to sell yourself through narrative. I tell people a lot, make your cover letter the story, not a laundry list. Frame it as a path that led you to this particular job, whatever those experiences may have been. And you're really helping the reader see how you're going to fit in with their organization. The cover letter is meant to be read first to orient the reader to the next place, which is the resume. But it's important to know that all of these materials, okay, so really all that these materials are meant to do is to get your foot in the door. They give you a chance to do an interview and sell yourself in person. So putting your time and effort into really each and every job application is part of what's going to give you the chance to do this in person. Legal resumes versus other professions. So I have a couple up here. One is a business resume, one is a graphic design resume. You probably will never see resumes like this in the legal field typically. Resumes for a graphic designer typically feature design elements that show off their design skills. So the resume that's being shown here, there's flowers, there's clouds in the background, there's a headshot. This is meant to show how they're able to do design, and they're using their own materials to help showcase that. Resumes for business majors typically feature lots of metrics, lots of numbers, KPIs even. The resume up here has a left-hand column with a bunch of white bars. Those are listing the candidate's skills and how they align with other skills that they have. And so this is really showing that they understand business outcomes. So a resume for a lawyer shows off what exactly? To me, it's supposed to show an understanding of the impact of words, the impact of a strong argument. So this means the legal resumes need to be clean, they need to be clear, concise, they need to make a strong argument. Legal resumes don't look like this because the legal field values substance and gravitas over style. So you really will almost never see a resume for a lawyer that is using left-hand column, that is using any kind of fancy formatting. Really doesn't happen. I've seen very, very few. And the ones that I have seen, I've had headhunters come to me and say, please work on fixing this resume and making it more traditional. Just turns out that just seems to be generally, you can't go wrong. It's sort of like when my husband was interviewing for clerkships as a very young lawyer. He wasn't even a lawyer yet. He was still just a law student. He was given the advice, just wear a white shirt with your suit. Don't try to get funny. Don't try to wear anything fancy. And I think resumes in the legal field tend to be similar to that. We're not here to do anything very fancy. It kind of makes me laugh because other professions have really embraced this idea of design and doing design. The law field has not done that quite yet. All right, so I received a resume and a cover letter to use for this presentation. It was anonymized, and I really appreciate the opportunity to show how editing works in real time with you. This is the original resume that I was given. Apologies for the red line. It looks intense. I took this screenshot after I went through and made some comments and edits. This resume is for a rising 2L who's doing summer clerkship or wants a summer clerkship. And I would like to say the bullets, the grammar on this were impeccable, but it's too long. This is more like a CV. It's really showing you everything possible. There is also a lot of open space. You can see it in the education section, as well as in the third page, awards and certs, leadership and memberships, and in languages. It's using up a lot of the real estate of the page, of the 8.5 by 11 page. There's really no easy way for a law student to hand over a 3-page resume. This is just not done. There are legal markets in the United States. Houston is a little better about it, but there are definitely legal markets in the US where even 20-year lawyers don't give 2-page resumes. It's a 1-pager, and that's all you're allowed to give. So we really have to shorten this. This is just too long. You can see from the red lines that I started out with many cuts. I did not cut the interests section because the interest section, I've never seen any other profession do this, by the way. This is a section that is, as far as I can tell, only in the legal field. And we want to honor that tradition that law students, when they are doing clerkships or going for first-time jobs, there's an interest section that talks about the things they're interested in outside of the law. So this person put travel, and it's anything, right? It's anything that you really are interested in. And I think the idea with this is that you're supposed to sort of, you kind of are networking. You're networking through your resume, right? Oh, I'm interested in these things. And the person who's doing the job interview might say, oh, that's interesting. Let's talk about that. And it gives you a chance to kind of show that you're more than just studying, right? And that's kind of the point of it. But it's always there. We're going to give it its space. We are not going to cut it out. Okay, so this is taking the resume down to 2 pages. Now, of course, I still don't recommend doing this, but I want to show what it is that we're cutting first. I have removed most of the bullets in the education section. We only have one bullet now under the law school section. We also really pulled the formatting in. I was using single spacing, 0 point after. Margins have been, expanded just a little bit. I removed volunteer. There was a volunteer experience section that was related to their biology major in their undergrad. I removed this because it's in a different field. And when you're trying to go specifically for the law and you are spaces at your premium, you're going to remove things like that. I also removed English as one of the languages because it's not necessary to state that when you're handing in this resume, res ipsa loquitur, right? Like the thing is speaking for itself. However, this resume is still 2 pages. So we are going to have to we're going to have to, as I say here, we're going to have to kill all the darlings. The 1-pager. This is incredibly concise and it takes time to cut these things and to kind of think through what can I cut and how do I make this into 1 page? So let me talk through how I did that. No bullets in education at all. The only thing I would put in as a special bullet under education would either be you were editor of the law review or some other prestigious student journal, or if you were a member of a very prestigious society. And this person as a rising 2L is not going to have that. So we took everything out. We also moved the positions for the law firms. The position line, which was in italics, we actually moved that up to the same line as the name of the law firm. So again, this is a space saving thing, but this is maximizing the sideways real estate of the document. Also removed a position they had as a law firm receptionist. That part, now that they have experience working in a firm as an intern or clerk, that's going to trump anyway. So it's okay to remove that and say, these are my past 2 experiences. I was working at firms and was doing more legally responsible work. That's important too. I also removed any experience from the older job, which is the second one, that is repeated in the new job. So what we want to do is we want to show growth of experience and responsibility. So in the older job, it's drafting legal documents, it's communicating directly with clients. That's fine, but I don't need to say that again in the newer job. What I want to show is that my responsibilities have increased. So yes, you're communicating, but you're actually preparing clients now. You're not just sending them emails, you're starting to prepare them for things that they're going to have to do for their interviews or other kinds of like legal actions. And so that's a good way of really creating that efficiency in a 1 page. If you have multiple experiences, if those are leveled up experiences, you can be pretty tight, right? I also removed all the scholarships. This person has kind of real law firm experience and doesn't really need to lean on the scholarships because scholarships represent the promise of a student. So it's good if you don't have any experience yet. Scholarships are incredibly important to put because they represent your promise. And that stands in for some of your experience if you don't have experience yet. But for this person, because they've already worked in 2 law firms, I don't think that they need to mention that. I kept memberships because memberships really shows kind of networking prowess and the fact that you're interested in becoming part of those networks when you are a professional. And we know that, many lawyers, as you grow in your job, you're expected to make rain. So having networking experience is a decent thing to put on your resume. If you look closely at this resume, you'll see that the bullets actually shift from experience to the leadership and interest section. Oh, and you'll note, and some of you may have noticed a formatting error, which is that I didn't underline languages. I ended up taking some things out of, there were these section markers. They used up a ton of real estate. I said, we don't have room for a space and a half of section markers that change every single section. With these long lines, we can't do that. Instead, let's just bold out the heading. We're going to give it an underline so you still know that it's a different section, but we're not wasting a lot of this very, very precious space for words in this resume. But you can see the bullets shifted. So in experience, ideally what I would do in the full resume is the shift on the left-hand side, those bullets were pulled almost all the way to the header. Again, we're maximizing real estate here. We can't be wasting like 3 to 4, I mean, it's a full word basically. If you look at the lower half of this resume, we're missing, it's like 2 words worth of space that we could be leveraging with actual bullets. So there's a lot of tricks around margins and tricks around formatting that you can use to help get you to a single page. One of the tricks that I like the best is do the print preview and take a look at your resume. Does it feel like there's too many words on the page? If there is, you might need a little more space to breathe. You might need to open up the margins a little bit more and give yourself a little more space. But sometimes you look at it a print preview and you go, wow, there is a lot of white space on this page, and I don't need that much. I need them to look at it, and I need to make sure that all my experience is there. All right. So this is kind of the tricks that I think of when we think about shortening resumes. Obviously, formatting and margins are a big one, but also thinking about, you don't want to repeat things in a resume. If I note that I have a scholarship and then I put it again at the bottom, or if I say that I'm active in something and then I say I'm active again at the same thing later on, don't do it, right? You're just wasting the efficiency of the space. And there is an argument to be made that people don't read very well and they will read over things in resumes. I think that that sometimes can be true. One of the things that I encourage people to do when they become a more seasoned lawyer and they have more experience, I actually start advising people to flip education and experience. Education is incredibly important in the resume when you are new to your career. You need to have people understand that you are either in the right program or you have the education that you need to do the work. As you gain experience, when you become a 5 or 6 or 8 year lawyer, you flip that, because now your experience is the thing that trumps. It's the most important thing. It's, look at how long I've worked as a lawyer. These are the important things. And education naturally falls then to the bottom because it's understood that you have a JD and that you have passed the bar. So as you kind of grow in your career, you're going to start flipping the presentation of this resume to highlight the most important thing first, because people always read the first part of your resume. They don't necessarily read the bottom of your resume. And I think it's important to be real about that. That happens all the time. You'll notice it as you go through this process. Okay. Now, cover letters are really hard to write. A lot of people really hate cover letters because you have to talk about yourself and you have to talk in a conversational style and you have to sell yourself. And not everyone is good at this or finds it comfortable. This writer did a very good job in the narrative of really sticking with the reasons that they want to pursue litigation specifically. They gave their past experience, helped them succeed in sentence format, and they even put at the bottom that they know a little something about the firm they're applying for. This shows also that this is not a cookie cutter cover letter. It's kind of important to give the impression that you really worked on the materials. And that's one easy way to do it, is to specifically mention the firm or the company that you want to work for and something that you like about them. The author also did a great job of using active voice. Many people use passive voice too much in cover letters because I think there's a subconscious belief that it distances you from bragging. Unfortunately, passive voice, there's only really one instance of this in this letter, which is in paragraph 3. And she says, I've been able to build trust. Passive voice adds a lot of weight and length to your narrative. I've been able to build trust. It's really much better to keep all your verbs active, which reduces your word count and gives you more to work with on your cover letter page. But it also leads the reader more directly to what you're trying to convey to them. We say, I enjoy, I knew, this draws me. Active verbs. I've been able to build trust, is not doing that. So you want to say, I build trust. I mean, just you're going to say it right out. I'm being very active. I do these things. And that is potentially and possibly why it is that people struggle with using active voice in cover letters, because it sounds like you're tooting your own horn. Now, sometimes passive voice, totally warranted. At the end, the author says, I would welcome, meeting with you. It's fine. It keeps it respectful. But for the most part, you want to keep it out of your writing as much as you can, especially in cover letters. The biggest issue, though, with this cover letter is that it's 2 pages. But it's just barely 2 pages. So this one is very easily fixed. Called a cover letter for a reason. It's supposed to only be the cover page to your resume. So its job is to really orient the reader, hiring manager, whomever, and you want to get them primed to look at your resume and look at it critically and carefully. So this really has to stay 1 page. 2-page cover letters are really only for academic situations. You're applying for a professorship or something, or if you've been working in various fields for 20 years or so. But even then, I argue you should avoid it. Mostly because people don't really get excited when they see a 2-page cover letter. They just don't. This writer was very close to the 1-page limit already. So what I did here is I actually copied the formatting of the resume header. You can see at the top, Jane Doe and all of that. I did it the same as what the resume had, as opposed to the standard address style of a regular letter. And you can kind of see it here. I'm going to go back 1 slide. You can see it here where it was the full address sitting right there. So we remove that and we mimic the formatting of the resume. This also helps orient the reader and put your materials together thematically, which can be helpful for keeping the pages together. I also removed the address lines to the hiring partner or manager. So when you do that, you're actually comfortably within 1 page with very little margin correction. Now the address section, I'll go back again. The address section right here to the hiring manager. It's great for formal letters, but increasingly kind of seen as old-fashioned because you're not mailing this letter. You're emailing it or you're sending it through a job board. Now, if it makes you feel comfortable to use the address line, absolutely do so. But I don't think that it's required any longer. I think that the practice has been that people don't expect it anymore. And if you need the real estate, you should use it. But I do want to be clear, all cover letters should only be 1 page. And my final advice to this author would be to submit both of these documents as PDFs, not as Word documents or whatever other format you might want. This not only avoids inconsistencies of formatting across screens and applications, which can happen if you're using something that's like a docx format. It also removes the ability for the reader to take a look at how much editing you did to the original document. PDFs don't have an edit history. DocXs often do, and people have been known to use that. So I always tell everyone, just convert it to PDF, print to PDF, convert to PDF, lock in the formatting and keep it so that they are not seeing any of your history or anything else about the authorship of the document besides what you want them to see, which is what you've written on the page. And I saw that we had a couple of questions. Yoka, I want to tackle that question there more towards the end, if that sounds good to you. But I also want to talk a little bit about this preliminary exercise with job ads or using resumes, writing them out and getting started with them. And this could be helpful too, even for somebody who's undergrad looking at law school and trying to work, into the field. So I always ask people who are working with me on their job materials, I always ask them the same set of questions, and it's a way to get them started on the process and get them started thinking about themselves as a candidate for whatever it is that they're trying to do. these are kind of the top 4 questions. It's like, do you have a job ad that you can reference, or a set of qualifications that somebody has kind of sent to you and said, this is who we're looking for. And once you have that in hand, or if you have something like that, what skills and experiences are written in the job description? You want to take notes on it. You want to think about how you personally fill those requirements that you're seeing in the job description. You want to underline adjectives that they use. You want to underline skills that they use in their description. And you're going to mimic those if you can in your resume. Partially that's because the reader will look and say, oh yes, I am looking for that. You're not using synonyms. This isn't like a thesaurus kind of thing. You can just use the exact same words, and that sometimes highlights you faster. It's also really useful for when you are doing this online and an AI is actually looking at your job materials. You might as well match the words. There's no easier way to get matched. What do you not have skills in? That's an important part of the note-taking process too. If you're looking at a job ad or you're looking at skills, what do you not have? Generally speaking, the advice is to apply for a job when you have 80% of the skills, not 100%. So you have to give yourself a little grace, right? But think about jobs or experiences you've had that might help qualify you in ways that aren't traditional. Volunteer experience is something that people sometimes dismiss, but is actually really illustrative of skills that didn't just come from school or didn't come from other jobs. I think the classic example is that if you worked fast food, you did a lot of customer service, right? You're very used to working with stakeholders. You're very used to working with people to fulfill complaints, or working with others in a peer way. There are a lot of experiences that you get from any job or any volunteer activity, and those can be flipped to being a useful piece of your resume every time. And then the last thing you really have to think about is, how exactly am I going to be presenting all this information, right? Luckily, if you're doing a legal resume, like I said, the format is pretty prescriptive. You're going to present it in the way that we present them. And what you saw from the shortest resume, that is really the main way that everybody does legal resumes. It is a single page, if you can make it a single page, and it's very simple. I mean, we're not doing anything fancy, so that helps. But then also, how are you going to present this information in a narrative for the people who are going to be reading it? Resumes are more like laundry lists, right? We're just saying, like, this is what I did and this is when I did it, and I have no gaps, or I have gaps, or whatever. But the cover letter is meant to be a story. And so you want to start out by saying, hi, I'm applying for this job. This is the job I'm applying for. This is why I think I would be good for the job. Then you go into your actual experience and you think about those experiences when you're writing them in a cover letter. This sounds sort of, I don't know, people sometimes say it sounds fake, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but what you're doing is you're telling the reader of your letter why it is that all of your experience and all of the things that you have done have led you to this place, to this job. And all of the things that you are doing are going to make you a better fit for this job than anyone else. That's the point of the cover letter. You want to make it feel kind of self-evident. Oh, look at all of these things that they did, and look at their experience, and they check so many boxes. You want them to think that before they even look at the resume. That's really the point of the cover letter. So this is an interesting exercise. I would recommend everybody do it for every job that they apply for. And I tell people this all the time when I'm working with them, please do this for every job, because you will sometimes miss things. But taking notes and being kind of persistent about, I know that these are the skills I have, and I know these are the things that I can do. Make sure you write all those down, right? And you put them into your resume. It's very easy to say, oh, I have a resume that's kind of like this job, and I think I have a resume that's already ready for it. I'll just use that. I don't ever recommend that people do that. You should always be at least editing a little bit, because every job is a little bit different. And you want to be very cognizant of that as you go through this process. Like I said, I really want to talk about online presence. I think it's incredibly important. I think we all agree it's incredibly important. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like the elephant in the room in terms of online presence. It's a great platform. It's good for networking. It's good for creating and finding connections to this, whatever wider community you're in. I feel like the legal field is pretty tied into LinkedIn. Not every job community uses LinkedIn, but I think the law does. It's worthwhile to create a LinkedIn profile with a good current picture of yourself, your experience, your education so far. The most important thing, though, to me about a LinkedIn profile, especially when you're job searching, is to make sure that the details match with the kinds of jobs that you're looking for. So if you haven't updated it in a while, or things have changed and you're looking in a different direction, sort of try to orient your LinkedIn description of your experiences and whatever jobs you've had, sort of try to orient them towards what it is that you're looking for, because people do go to LinkedIn to check on you. If you're casting a wide net across a couple of different job types or a few different fields, really make your profile go one level up, make it really high level. You don't want to say something on LinkedIn that you're not saying in a job application, right? You want it to be fairly in line so that they don't come to your profile and say, well, and this would happen to me, for instance, right? Well, I mean, I'm really looking for a business architect, but the experience that I'm seeing is only aligned with a librarian. So why would I hire this person as a business architect? So you have to sometimes you have to change your profile to say, how do I encompass all of the things that I do and all of the things that I am, so that I can put it into the LinkedIn profile. And actually, that's what happened to me when I first applied to a corporate job at Phillips 66. All of my previous experience was with universities. And the way we talk about roles and responsibilities is extremely different between those two types, corporate versus university life. So my LinkedIn profile needed to bridge those two worlds and really needed to frame my experience in ways that are understandable to a corporate audience. So students and faculty become stakeholders. Yearly outcomes become key performance indicators. So translating that experience is important. You don't really want the reader to do the work. You have done the work, and all they have to do is bring it in and internalize it. Also, engaging on other posts is the only way to get LinkedIn to serve your posts to your network, just in case that was not well known. So coaches recommend engaging a lot and every day if you're on a job search, like if you're actively searching. So what you have to do is you have to comment on other people's posts, you reshare things, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is really just priming LinkedIn's algorithm to make sure that when you post something, your post is picked up by more people who are outside your network, but also inside your network. If you don't post very often and then you post, it can take 2 weeks for somebody in your network to see what you posted. LinkedIn is terrible about that. The algorithm specifically rewards people who are active, and it sort of discriminates against people who aren't. So that's something to know if you're using LinkedIn at all. The algorithm. This is what we all call it this, right? I'm always writing to the algorithm. So like I said, I'm an architect now. I support HR functions. Phillips 66 is a Fortune 30 company. I hate to say it, but most places do use AI-powered or robotic process review of resumes and documents, and even for initial screening reviews. They record the calls that happen in initial screens and evaluate them, and then that material gets sent to hiring managers. We have to assume that this is going to keep happening, and it's going to start being leveraged by smaller and smaller companies and firms as the technology kind of gets cheaper and reaches through more ecosystems. So what can we do to kind of help the AI or help algorithmic automation help you pass? Meet the basic requirements of the job ad and be clear that you meet them. Do not leave anything to the imagination. AI has no imagination. It is not going to understand. So that's another reason why I was saying, underline the terms that they're using for skills and repeat those in the resume, repeat them in the cover letter. Like I said, use the same words. This ensures that if a place is using simple robotic automation rather than AI, you still match. This was a really big problem 3 or 4 years ago. People would use synonyms instead of the actual word, and they would get kicked out because the computer automation didn't understand how synonyms work. And so you'd get kicked out of the process, even if you were qualified. So you really do have to be very clear. And this is specifically, you have to think I like to think like if I was writing my resume for like a seventh grader, maybe a seventh grade kid, eighth grade kid, and I'm writing it and I'm saying, I definitely have a bachelor's degree, right? You want to write out, I have a Bachelor of Arts. You want to write out, I have a Master of Arts or Sciences. You write out how long, you want to put the dates for how long you were at a company. All of these things are important to do now because AI is sort of more like a junior high kid in its understanding than it is like a hiring manager. You also want to do really simple formatting of the resume. That is actually something that the graphic design business, other types of resumes that use that new left-hand column, right-hand column, even now, a lot of HR technology just doesn't accept those. And it doesn't know what it's doing with them. And it doesn't understand how the margins work. And it gets confused. So legal has a leg up here. Simple formatting of the resume. I recommend using a sans serif font. Sans serif is, no hooks on the end of the letters, right? So my PowerPoint presentation is in sans serif font. So no Times New Roman, no Georgia, no, I don't know, there's others, I can't remember what they are, but anything with like little hooks on the letters are more difficult to read on screens, and they're more difficult for algorithms and automations to parse. That is less likely to happen now, but it's not impossible to have happen now. And so sometimes things can be misinterpreted by automated or agentic tools. And so you can't go wrong with like Calibri, Arial. It doesn't look as fancy and it doesn't look as fun, but it does get you past the screening if you're trying to get something with like a larger company. Okay, and we have officially gone out of my slides, and I'm very, very interested in people's questions. If there are any, we can probably start first chat question if we want to. Chris, what do you think?
Thank you, Melissa. That was really fantastic. We have a couple of questions from the chat. So maybe the first one is one of our attendees says that they're having a problem shortening their resume to 1 page versus 1.5 pages. So I guess it's what can we do to, when we're kind of on the cusp, but we're going on to that second page. Do you have any additional recommendations on how we can cut it down to 1?
It's hard. It's really hard. One of the things that I've recommended to people in the past is get someone you trust to look at a job ad and look at your resume and give you recommendations on what to cut. It's often harder for us to cut things because it's our life. It's our experience, and that's harder. But I always recommend like have someone you trust, like somebody in your family or friend or something, have them review your resume and give you feedback, especially if it's too long, and say like, what can I do? Now, I mean, the nice thing is if you have access to any kind of AI, you can ask the AI to condense your resume for you, and it'll do it. And I wouldn't recommend like just using that, but you can use it to look at how it condensed your language, right? How did I make myself brief? I don't personally use AI very much. I don't like it that much. But that is something about it that is incredibly useful, which is if I need to be more brief, AI can really help you condense and give you ideas for how to condense. But the best one is other human beings and say, what am I doing here? Why is this so hard for me to condense? And let them give you feedback about things that are in your resume that you don't need. There's a lot of things that we end up kind of blind to because we see it too much. So I recommend networking with other people a lot.
Thank you. And the next question from the chat is, I think we have an undergraduate student that's joined us that's interested in applying to law school. And so using that resume as kind of part of that process, the question is about whether, to highlight your school clubs and organizations that you're involved in. What do you recommend from that perspective?
I think, well, I would also ask if that's being represented elsewhere in another part of the application, does it need to go on the resume? If they're asking for your participation in clubs or they're asking for your former like student leadership or something like that, that's another part of the application. You probably don't need to put it into the resume part. But generally speaking, many organizations and clubs can show, and the lawyers in the room will have to sort of agree or disagree with me here, and I'm interested in your thoughts. But a lot of the reason that law schools ask for things like that is because they're kind of trying to see, like, do you seem like a person who's going to thrive in the legal field? Are you a serious student? Do you take being a student seriously? Do you network? Are you interested in pursuing this profession, and have you been interested in it throughout your undergraduate career? I think all of these are questions that admissions offices are asking themselves. But that's a difficult one for me to answer since I don't work in law school admissions. That'd be a tough one. But if anybody from the legal field has got any insight into that, I'd be interested to hear it too.
It's like we don't. We do have a question though from one of our attendees. Christelle, do you want to come off mute and ask?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chris. So, first of all, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing. I actually attended the same workshop last year, and LinkedIn was one of the things that they talked about. And over the past year, I've worked on being more intentional, and I've had attorneys that have met me just instantly want to connect or just give me praises about that. So, I'm really eager to incorporate your advice. Where I'm a little bit torn is I'm a 3L, so I graduate in May. I'll be sitting for the bar, and obviously on the top of my mind is post-grad opportunities. And I
Yeah.
feel a little hesitant to say this because I've gotten mixed feedback from my career admissions office or like the career and professional development office, and then what I've heard in workshops. So I was told the same thing, shorten it to one page, right? And I
Yeah.
did. And when I landed my summer internship for this past summer, once they started asking me in the interview about my other experiences, the initial feedback that I got is, why wasn't any of that on your resume? You're a non-traditional student. I mean, they were more interested by what I had done prior to coming to law school because it aligned a lot with that internship specifically.
Okay.
And these attorneys gave me the advice of take it to 1.5 pages because some of the experience that you have is so interesting. It's such a great talking point. And had I not gotten that,
Yeah.
and they had my cover letter, they had my resume, right?
Yeah.
So they were like, this is something that, we would like to see, and we think other employers would like to see as well. So my question to you is, should I still keep it back, like take it back, scale it back to the one page for post-grad opportunities? Um, and then just use my cover letter as that narrative to be intentional about maybe some of the things that I'm cutting out from my pre-law school working experience.
Yeah, I've run into this problem with myself before, and so I know what you're
Okay.
talking about. It's like you're sitting in the interviews and they're going, why didn't you tell us about this? Well, because I'm
Yeah.
constrained the same way everyone is constrained by the expectations of, what we send in. Um, that would probably be what I would do, is keep a one-page resume, but really lean in on the things that you did before law school, especially if it's relevant to the specific job that you're applying for.
Okay.
If you're trying to go to a different area or something like that, like for instance, the person whose resume that I did just now, she was a biology major. Now, if she were going into like IP, I would want to highlight more that she was a science major.
Okay.
But because what she's interested in is family litigation, the biology, it falls behind a little bit, right? It's not as important because it's not that that degree isn't going to get used, but it's definitely not going to get used as heavily as if they were going into like an intellectual property type role. So it is kind of a dance, right? You're doing a little bit of
Okay.
that. But if you have pre-law, like law school experience that's very relevant, you want to find some way of getting them to it. One thing
Okay.
I've noticed too that people do is they actually put their LinkedIn like short link or whatever, they put that on their resume too. Or
Oh,
they do a
okay.
little, I've seen little QR codes. So like if they're looking at it on paper, they can scan it with their phone and it'll bring up your LinkedIn profile. These are like the extra bites at the apple. essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Understood.
yeah, getting a little creative about that, or inviting them to your LinkedIn in the cover letter is another way to do that as well, right? I have more experience. Take a look and just openly invite them to look at your online materials. Could be
That's a
another way
great
to do it.
That's a great tip. And one more thing, just to go back to the cover letter, I'm sorry, the resume.
Yeah.
I, in a very similar fashion, have been actively involved in student organizations. I've been fortunate enough to be awarded scholarships. That section alone could take up like 1/4 of a page. So for
Yeah.
post grad, would you recommend that I maybe nix like the scholarship stuff and just leave my student involvement?
Yeah, probably.
Or, okay.
But if you got a lot of money off your I've never done this before, but this is an interesting. I'm doing like a thought experiment now. You could say that you were like the recipient of however many dollars of scholarship money. That's a single line.
That's
You could just,
awesome. Actually, I will probably do that.
yeah,
Thank
because
you
I mean
so
that sort
much.
of shows that you have it, right? Without having to list everything and name it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. And just, I think one more thing then, because it just came to my mind. So, education, that's where I would maybe mention like the student leadership, the one liner for the scholarships, go into my experience. One thing that I do have, and I wasn't sure where to put it because it's been kind of at the bottom of my resume, but I'm not sure if I should move it up. So, I didn't do law review,
Uh-huh.
but that was intentional. I just didn't want to do it. But I
Yeah.
do have research experience, like being a research assistant to my professor, and I helped her publish a couple of law school or law review articles, and I have that on my resume. So I was unsure if that's something that I should move up, like before the experience. So it's kind of where all the other law school activities and stuff things are, or if I should just put that after my actual legal experience. I wasn't sure where in the resume that should fall.
I would say it depends on if the publications are related to the type of law that you want to pursue.
I see. Okay.
That would be the main thing for me. Like, if it's directly related to the kind of law you're hoping to pursue, yeah, throw it up to the top. I mean, honestly, I'd put it up there and be like, look, I'm already working essentially like on thinking about these issues. If it's outside of the field that you're interested in, I would probably drop it down. It shows that you have research experience, but it's not, if it's not directly related, I think it probably just kind of is an extra little cherry on top for them.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. These are all nuggets that I'm going to take away and definitely share with some of my peers that are
Yeah.
also getting ready for, post grad application season and stuff. So
Yeah.
thank you so, so much. I greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome.
5 minutes left. Nayoka, I know you added a few more questions to the chat. Do you want to ask the ones that are kind of top of mind for you right now?
Sure. I can do it really quickly. Or you could just summarize it. I believe the previous individual, Crystal, kind of said something similar to what I had. So I don't know if it's necessary for me
Okay.
to include that. But if you wouldn't mind, Chris, you want to go ahead and just summarize it for me so I won't be long-winded.
I'm happy to. So, Melissa, the question is, um, I know you talked about reducing the resume to a single page and how important that is in the legal profession. But the question is, what happens when an employer reviews your work history on your LinkedIn page, and
Yeah.
it's much different, of course, than the resume, which has been severely condensed. Is there any concern there, as long as it's consistent, I suppose?
Yeah, I've had people ask me that because I've had to do it before, to stick to a certain, like length of cover letter or resume. Um, I honestly think that like if in the cover letter you can say that, you can say like my resume is condensed. I would encourage you to visit my LinkedIn profile. This is the link to it to view like all of my experience. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. And I think most people are going to be going to your LinkedIn anyway. I mean, even if you don't invite them, people are going to go there and they're going to take a look at it. So I think the cover letter might be I haven't seen this yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if cover letters kind of start to become, hey, this is my experience generally, and here are the other places where I would like for you to go look for my experience. You know, like this is my portfolio, or this is my LinkedIn, or this is where you can find out more about me, because we can't keep it to 2 pages necessarily. And I think that's a good way of kind of inviting people to see the rest and to say outright, look, I know that what you see in my resume and what you see in my LinkedIn are going to be different from each other. And I'm comfortable with that, right? Just like kind of address the elephant in the room right away.
That's great. Thank you. We have just a few minutes left. I think we have time for one more question. If anybody has, oh, it looks like Daniel has one. Daniel, go ahead, please.
Daniel has his hand up.
Sure. Hey, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you, Melissa. I know a lot of law students are also applying to law adjacent roles, right? Would this guidance also apply to that? Essentially, would the recruiter kind of be looking for the same thing that you are just guiding us on what to look for?
I would say overall, probably it's pretty close. I think if you're looking at, if the legal adjacent role is within business, it's going to be a little bit different, but not that different. And I think with business resumes, you get a little more grace on going to 2 pages as well. So, and most fields, I think you get a little bit more wiggle room depending on what it is that you're applying for. But generally, I think the advice stands. It's important to show what experience you have. It's important to show your education, especially if you're new and you're just graduating. Education is still going to be at the top of your resume, more than likely, unless you were working for, 5, 6, 8 years before you went to law school. The only thing that I would say that for sure is different is if you are applying to a role that's not with a law firm, you don't need to put interests in. And most people will actually think it's a little bit weird if they see your interests in your resume. If you're applying for a job outside of the legal field, that's the one thing that is very, very special to the law.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. This was so incredibly practical and helpful for all of us on the line, whether we're undergraduate students, law students, or even for those of us that have been working for quite some time. So again, thank you so much for volunteering to do this for us. I hope that everyone on the line got as much out of it as I did. I want to thank Daniel Rodriguez and Mari for their help setting this up, and my co-chairs on the mentorship committee, Islara and Leticia, for the work getting this started. So again, thanks to all who attended, and thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much. It was really, really fun.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.